Thank you, Steve. Jim Lowman from Fairfield, North Dakota. And we have two candidates here, and I'd like to vote for both of them because they're both very deserving of being in the Cowboy Hall of Fame, and I think they will both eventually be there one day. I'm going to talk about Doc Hubbard because I nominated him several months ago. And no speech, no notes, I'm just going to talk about the Doc Hubbard that I knew. Doc was born on the Seneca Reservation in upstate New York back in the 1800s. His grandpa was a medical doctor that came on the reservation to practice, and his grandmother was a Mohawk Indian lady from the reservation. So growing up on the reservation and from his mother's side, I'm sure he learned the culture and the traditions, and he especially liked the dances. He was real strong on the tribal dances. And from his father's side, I guess they figured it, or from his grandfather's side, they figured he should be a doctor like his grandfather was, so that's where the name Doc come from. And I guess the call of the West eventually went out, was a little stronger than the call of the medical school, so he became a Westerner. And he accomplished a lot of things. You can read those in his resume out here, but when he was a teenager, his grandmother on the maternal side brought him out here to visit an uncle. His uncle had a ranch in Montana, and when he was a teenager, his grandmother on the maternal side brought him out to visit his uncle. And on the way through, then those days they traveled by train. This was like 1902 or thereabouts. They traveled on train, and when they came through Medora, they had to stop and get off and spend a couple days in Medora and the Badlands here because Teddy Roosevelt was president in 1902. And they, being New Yorkers like Teddy was, they had to stop and see this country that Teddy talked about, the people, the culture here, and how Roosevelt figured his years out here of hunting and ranching brought him into the person he was that enabled him to become president. So they had to stop and see that, and I guess that's where Doc kind of first experienced the West and came to love it. Well, later when he grew up, he did a lot of things. I won't go into those in the resume out here, but he ended up teaching school at Minot State College. He spent several years at Minot College before coming to Medora. And then when he got to Medora, that's where I became acquainted with him, got to know him. Came here and he ran the museum, and he taught the tribal cultures. And one incident I wanted to tell about was when he was, when I was in college at Dickinson State. We didn't have homecoming king and queen at there. We had a mascot at Dickinson State then, was the Savages, honoring our tribal people here. And we elected a chief and a princess. And the chief, they had traditional headdress and the buckskins, and that was the royal court was theme, honoring our tribal people here. Well, my senior year, Jim Davis, an Indian boy from Belcourt, was elected chief. Now, Jim and I were roommates for 2 years. We ran on the track teams together, but he was elected the chief, and so he brought in quite a number of his fellow students and friends from the reservation, so we had an authentic royal court that year. But when we were during the homecoming week, Doc Hubbard came from Medora up to the college and taught traditional Indian dances. And most of these young people from the reservation had not learned that. It's something where they're kind of losing in their culture. They're just being left behind. And he wanted them to know of their culture. So he taught, the rain dance, pony dance, various dances, and to them so that they would understand that and know and could be proud of their tradition. And so that's the incident that it really stands out to me in Doc Hubbard's life from all the other accomplishments he did. He was the kind of man, he wanted to preserve this tradition and not lose it. It was important that the young people would know that and carry it on. So I think that sums up the great Westerner that Doc Hubbard was, and that's what I remember him about. Thank you.